It's day 8 in the month of January 2025. How time flies. We are indeed speeding like nothing can stop us as we start 2026. Absolutely, 2027. It pretty much sounds good for politicians because it's like doing it very quickly so they can wrap things up. The election comes and then it's done and dusted. Those who are going for the second term would go, and those who wouldn't, well, it depends all on you. On that note, I want to say welcome to Breakfast Central. Like I always say, we thank God for life. As long as you're alive, you can hear my voice, and you can watch us live, then you must be thankful. My name is Joe Hansen.
And I'm Benga Bora. Welcome to Breakfast Central. This is where we bring you all the latest information and insightful analysis. And we also speak to subject matter experts on certain topics that are in the front burner and you might want a deeper understanding of. If you've joined us this morning, you've made one right decision. You're welcome to Breakfast Central, and as usual, we start off with our wake-up conversations. But before we go to our wake-up conversations, I would just like to appeal to the Lagos State Department of Public Works, our commute to work. You know, we should be getting what they call proximity to power benefits. New Central is located in Ogba. Ogba is less than 2 kilometers from the seat of power in Alausa. So you expect the roads and infrastructure to be tight and proper since we're very close to the powerhouse of Lagos State, the governor's office. But it's not the case. If you look at Latif Jakonde Road, there are so many potholes there. You have to dodge potholes every day. You have to be mindful. And the roads are dark. There are no street lights on the entire stretch. And also Wemco Road. So it would be nice for the Department of Public Works to do something about it, even if it's just to do remedial work, you know, patch up some of those potholes so they can be motorable and people don't start spending the money they should be giving to the government for taxes on mechanic. I'd rather pay my taxes than give it to the mechanic, because I can see the benefits that will come from
And talking of taxes, let's just mention here that Olive will not be on the show today. She's on an assignment, so it's just myself and Benga, but don't worry.
We're giving her a task,
yes, a task
to do, not a tax.
A task.
Yeah.
There's no K on that, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, anyway, let's go straight to our wake-up conversations. A lot has happened. Former SGF of the Federation, Malami, and his family were granted bail yesterday. That's another story we're going to
look
into.
His wife, his son,
is one of his wives.
Okay.
And his son. Yes.
That's a family affair.
Yes, it's a family affair. Was granted bail yesterday, and Benga could not help but imagine this is the same person who joined the ADC and said he was going to change the country. But your hands aren't clean.
I mean, then his portfolio was Attorney General and Minister of Justice, so he should be held to an even higher standard.
I'm telling you. Knowing what the law says.
I mean, if you see the list of properties that were seized,
213.
How do you even keep up with things you have? All those properties. How do you know?
52 or 53 properties.
Yeah.
Wait, the question now is, whose money? How did you get? See, even if you worked in the civil service, Benga, for 40, 80
and you didn't
years,
spend 1 naira of your salary.
You didn't spend 1 naira of your salary. You got how many properties worth how money? And we're talking about 50-something trillion.
It's ridiculous.
Nah, this is funny. The next time we have an ADC member join us, maybe that's a question we should ask them, because you're parading yourself as the savior. But here is one person who had joined your party and also said he wanted to save the country. He didn't save the country while he was in power. Is he going to save the country? You know, sometimes we just need to laugh off these things. They are very shocking indeed. But let's go to our very first story, a wake-up conversation. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has appointed Dr. Olugbemisola Titilayo Odushote as the first female Director General of the Nigerian Law School since its establishment in 1962, with a 4-year tenure set to begin on January 10, 2026. Following the completion of Professor Isa Yatu Chiroma's 8-year term, well, Dr. Odushote, currently the Deputy Director General and the head of the Lagos campus, comes in with a strong profile that includes LLB and LLM degrees from Obafemi Awolowo University, a PhD in law from the University of Surrey, and over 2 decades of service in the law school, where she has risen through roles such as, lecturer, director of academics, not forgetting to campus head. As she prepares to take charge of academic leadership, administration, and strategic direction across all campuses, many Nigerians are not having it quietly, with arguments springing up over her stated age, Binga, and with some reactions drifting into tribal and religion lines. Well, even as other, regional lines as well, and even as others insist the focus should remain on her qualifications and the historic nature of the appointment. Well, let's quickly mention to you that while many have applauded this, there seems to be confusion within one thing, which is, how old is she? The age that was being pushed out there by the SSA and the presidency, is it really true? But we'll get to know this. As you look at this press statement by Bayo Onanuga, it says President Bola Tinubu has approved the appointment of Dr. Olugbemisola Titilayo Odusote as the Director General of the Nigerian Law School. The appointment takes effect on January 10, 2026 for a 4-year term. Now, take note, he said Dr. Odusote is currently the Deputy Director General and Head of Lagos Campus and will become the first woman to lead the institution since its establishment in 1962, which, of course, we must say we highly commend. Well done. However, there's a big question to be asked, and that question is where we are going to. It says she joined law school in 2000. Okay, hold on. That's the line. Titilayo Odusote obtained the LLB degree from Obafemi Awolowo University and was called to the Nigerian bar in 1988.
Okay.
1988. Take note. She holds an LLM from the same university, specializing in company and commercial law. She later obtained a PhD in law from the University of Surrey, and so on and so forth. Now, she joined the law school in 2001 as a lecturer. Since then, she has served various capacities, including as head of academic department and so on and so forth. But what is the challenge here? Why are Nigerians saying that 1988, when she was called to bar, doesn't sound true? Well, let's see how Nigerians are reacting to the story. That gives you an insight into what we're saying.
Investigative Nigeria.
Now, this is it. This woman can't be 57 years old. If she was born in 1968, then it means she was called to the bar at 20. That is, she entered OA University at 14 and spent 5 years there plus 1 year law school. This is almost impossible to enter university at 14 in 80s. Impossible, he says. The drama started online. Take a look at this one. Zege says, "Dear Madam, I hope you understand that implications of this mega mistake by SSA on your age. It is either you or him have lied on your age. 57 years, called to the bar in 1988. It is possible, but not in Nigeria in the 80s. I schooled then. Kindly refute or correct this."
It's important to correct this, but let's see
more reactions, okay? Wait, the Nigerian president, they appoint law school orgas, no wonder. Chai, so much for 3 tiers of government in Nigeria. Last world country indeed. Okay, this one is not even buying the fact that the president is now appointing who heads the, the law school. But then again, this appointment reflects President Tinubu's commitment to merit, inclusiveness, and institutional progress, making a positive step forward for legal education and gender representation in Nigeria. True, we agree. We agree with that. Apostle of the Most High God says, Pa Tinubu, is the only Yoruba ethnic group that make up Nigeria? Buhari was tribalistic, but you have outdone him in this respect. Make sure that you also depend only on Yoruba votes if the Lord tarries in 2027.
Yeah, I mean, the tweets are valid, especially the last one. If you recall the last appointment of the INEC chair, Professor Josh Amopita is from the southwestern part of the country. And if you look at top appointments in the Tinubu administration, a lot of them come from the southwestern part, and it's bound to make tongues wag, and people question that. I mean, Nigeria is an ethnically diverse country. Why does it seem that a lot of your top appointments have to come from the same part of the country? And the natural argument that most people say is, oh, President Buhari did it, but doesn't mean it's right. I believe any Nigerian that is qualified, irrespective of where they come from, should fulfill those appointments. But the Constitution sees this sort of things coming up, and that's why we have the Federal Character Commission. And with regards to the age controversy, I mean, there might be a clerical error somewhere, but it's important for the newly appointed DG to come out and clarify what's really going on with regards to age controversy and clear up things, because you will want to start an appointment on that footing and note, especially being a legal practitioner.
I agree. I mean, just to highlight again, there's some reasonings that are available online as well. If you check, try to run through her profile. It says multiple reliable sources, including official announcements from the presidency at major Nigerian outlets like the FRCN, Sahara Reporters, Daily Post, and media outlets say consistently report her age to be 54. Okay? In January 2026. Now, this places her birth year around 1971 or 1972, all the way to 2006. So she'll be 54. However, depending on the exact date in January 2026 and her birthday, she could have turned 54 in 2025 or earlier in 2026. She was called to bar in 1988. Now, the calculation is this. Take note. If she was born in 1972, okay, in 1988, she would have been 16 years old, turning 17 later that year. It is her birthday. That is if it is a later date. But people are now saying that she was called to bar. She was called to bar in 1988, of course. So, in other words, if she was born in 1972 all the way to 1988, she would have been 16 years. If born in 1971, not 1972, she would have been 17 years. Bottom line, there's confusion over what her age is. And people
how
who
do you go
lived
to
during
university?
her time, exactly.
A 5-year course.
5-year course. You're called to
and
bar
you've done law school
at 16.
So deduct 16 by 5 years. That means you go into university at 10 or 11.
Yay! Is that possible?
Must have been a genius.
So, I mean, to the legal luminary, to the madam, please, we want to use this medium to beg that you clarify these things. You know, we have never had it this tough in a long while, especially from the top leadership. And we always discuss leadership here on this program. But leadership has to do with accountability.
Due diligence.
And due diligence. Unfortunately, as journalists, we've always had to backtrack. We have never backtracked so much like we've done in the past 3 years, where we push out information that comes from the top, even press releases, and then later on we come back trying to explain the information.
There's extra scrutiny.
Because some things have changed.
And, I mean, the government needs to understand the times we live in. Information is no longer unidirectional. There's feedback. It's not, and there are multiple sources of information. It's not just coming from government news service, and then there are no alternatives, and there's no way for you to get feedback. Nigerians are very brilliant people. They're very intelligent, and they will verify every information that comes out and do their due diligence. I think it's what makes our democracy vibrant. But having said that, let's move on to our second wake-up conversation of the day. And many people have said, look, if Lagos is positioning itself as a mega city, as a center of excellence, then we shouldn't be seeing some of these things we've been witnessing in Lagos. And I believe the Lagos State government has finally decided to do something about it. Lagos State government has intensified its crackdown on street begging across the city, targeting key corridors, including the famous Lekki-Ajah and Lekki-Epe expressways, as well as K2 Mile 12, as part of the ongoing efforts to restore public order, ensure safety, and keep roads and public spaces clear. In yesterday's operations, 18 individuals were arrested along the K2 Mile 12 axis for obstructing public areas, while 38 others were apprehended along the Lekki-Epe expressway for soliciting arms and causing traffic disruptions. Among those arrested was a 15-year-old Mahfouz Aziz, who has been aggressively soliciting by displaying bank account details and operating a POS device on the road.
Well, let me just add that aside from arresting beggars, Lagos State also launched a crackdown on those who harass people whose cars stop on the road. You know, we've highlighted this. The street urchins who come out and tell you have to pay XYZ amount before you could fix your tires and so on. But let's just take a look at the videos that we have lined up for you. Please take a look.
àbí. Wá. Kẹ́yìn lẹ́ni mọ́tò. Kí ló wá bá yín fún? Ẹ bá mi sọ̀rọ̀. Kí ló wá bá yín fún? Kí ló wá bá yín fún? Owó kí ni? Ọ̀yà gbọ́n, owó kí lẹ fẹ́ gbà lọ́wọ́ wọn? Owó kí ni? Mo fẹ́ gbowó ni. Mo ṣe máa ń ṣe nìyẹn. Sẹ́ni ẹ tún ṣe báyà bí? Ìyàbí ni ẹ̀kún náà. Àwọn èèyàn fẹ́ bá mi lọ. So far eating ni. Ẹ ó bá eating. Ẹ sọ ti tutù báyìí. Àwọn ní wọn gbọ́dọ̀ ń pè mí gbọ́dọ̀ lọ. Ẹ nà ọjọ́ wọn nìyẹn. Ọya ẹ bomi sí mọ́tò yín. Ẹ bomi sí mọ́tò yín bẹ́ẹ̀. Ẹ bomi sí mọ́tò yín. Ẹ bomi sí mọ́tò yín.
Àwọn bàbá yìí wá lọ́bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní tiwọn látòkè òní pé ká máa wọnú mọ́tò, ká máa wọnú mọ́tò.
I mean, this has led to lots of reactions from users of social media. They're quite, there's a school of thought that applauds this and says, you know, it's way, it's about time the Lagos State government does something about this menace, because some of them are very opportunistic in stealing things from people's cars. They're very rude, and they also contribute a traffic menace to the society. So it's a good step, but others are looking at the human rights of these individuals that were apprehended by the Lagos State government, saying that some of them are minors, and we also understand the criminal justice system. They are worried that they might just end up being in jail and awaiting trial forever. But let's take this statement
the third paragraph
from the Lagos State Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Mr. Tokunbo Wahab. The third paragraph says, in addition, one Mahfouz Aziz, age 15, was apprehended along the Lekki-Ekpe Expressway for aggressively soliciting arms. It takes it a step further by saying in displaying bank account details and operating a POS device on the road. This individual is known for repeatedly engaging in this activity despite previous warnings. It says enforcement will continue consistently across the state as well to keep our roads safe, orderly, and free from environmental and social infractions. I hope the government maintains this, because they have a tendency of coming back when they see that enforcement is lax. They will come back. I hope the government will also maintain this energy in the run-up to elections, because they seem to, you know, be lax with things. They don't want to enforce laws because of the polls. They want to appear to be people-friendly as we approach election season. So this should be sustained, maintained, and we should also look for long-term solutions. But I believe we'll see some of the solutions when we take what Nigerians are saying.
Let's just go to what Nigerians are saying, because the reactions definitely are very key. Let's get to hear what you have been saying on this. Mr. Incredible says, what exactly is wrong with Nigerian leaders and basic human decency? You posted a photo of a minor, clearly stated his age, so you knew he was a child and still went ahead to publish his picture. Then you proudly claimed he was repeatedly engaging in begging despite previous warnings. How does it make sense for a government official to warn a minor for begging instead of ensuring the child is taken off the streets and properly cared for? The fact that he's still there is clear evidence of your government's failure despite the trillions you declare annually as income. I'm not going to agree with Mr. Incredible. I'm sorry. I will not agree with him 100%, and I'll mention why maybe in the course of reacting to some of them. I think the government should be spared of that statement, and I'll explain clearly. Estoba says, imagine a beggar using POS in traffic. Soon, they graduate to high-tech robbery in traffic. My brother, they've graduated already. I will explain. Lagos has been sleeping for too long on these street urchins. Beggars that have invaded Lekki Ekpe Expressway and many strategic areas of Lagos. It is clear and present danger to taxpayers in Lagos. Let's take another one. SDM, your curtain. What a plug. Pardon my ignorance, please. After the arrest, what next? Do you send them to rehab or back to their state of origin? That's a question he's asking. And Folu puts a long one. Primary and secondary school education has been tuition-free in Lagos for 26 years because of Chief Obafemi Awolowo's 1955 free education policy in the Western region. So I don't understand why these kids who should be in school are on the streets during school hours, breaking traffic laws, committing crimes and putting their precious lives in danger. Under Lagos State Child's Right Law of 2007 and Universal Basic Education Law of Lagos State in 2005, child labor is a crime, street working is a crime. Now, this guy has answered part of the question, the point from the other guy who had tweeted and said he blames the state government. No, you don't. This is the reason, one of the reasons. Their parents or guardians should be prosecuted in court, and these children should be handed over to the Lagos State Child Protection Unit in headquarters, and then it goes on HC.
Honorable Commissioner Ogulende's ministry, that's the Minister of Youth.
We must eliminate child labor, child abuse, and curb the out-of-school children problem in Lagos. Okay. Festus says, school is free, but books and uniforms aren't free from what I understand. No free food. Only free tuition isn't enough for people who have no money. True. That's another point. Misplaced priorities. This case wouldn't be on the streets if every sector of the government were doing its job properly. In our country, as blessed as Nigeria, we're free from education, where we have free education should be nothing more than a mere formality, and where basic human needs and essential infrastructure for survival should not be difficult to access. And then he goes ahead, it's quite a lengthy read, and of course he hits on the government saying, raiding, beggars and street urchins, look at the term you use, how does that even sound to you? Insecurity and terrorism, which have been among the country's major problems for years, remain largely unresolved. Yet raiding beggars and street urchins appears to be the main focus of the security forces. Quite a shame. Well, I don't think it's quite a shame.
And it's not the security forces. It's Lagos State's kick against.
Let's come back. Let's come back to the studio.
Kai officials that are doing this.
Yeah. I'm just going to say this, Benga, quickly as we touch on this. I think the Lagos State has slept on this for a very long time. I would always remember and allude to the time of the former governor of Lagos State, Governor Babatunde Fashola, and SAN. Fashola, at a certain point, as a governor, decided to take it upon himself to clean Lagos up. And we must be honest. He set the pace before Governor Ambode came and continued from there. Remember the Oshodi cleanup and everything. It started from Governor Fashola. And that's why we talk about always following through, passing what you've started to the next governor. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, governance or the processes are not being passed to the next. Somebody comes, it's not continuum. Somebody comes and then starts his own afresh. However, just to mention, at some point, he ensured that he cleared these beggars away from the streets. And I was an eyewitness of one where a huge truck was parked, loaded them in. We heard right there from the officials that they would be asked, where are you from? If you're from Kaduna, if you're from Calabar, back to where you're coming from. Does it mean that you don't have freedom of movement in the country? No. But you are
constitutionally, he's not allowed
exactly.
to do that.
Constitutionally, you can't come to another state and become a nuisance.
Yeah, but I mean, Fashola,
that's what they said.
I mean, the Nigerian Constitution guarantees you freedom of movement.
That's what I'm saying.
Anywhere within the geographical space.
But does it guarantee you freedom to cause a nuisance in another place? Of course, you'll be dealt with as much as possible. Some of them I also heard they had gotten their guardians and they took it upon their guardians. Now, that's one. That's a side, Benga. I'm very passionate about this conversation. Sorry. But another point is, these same beggars, we found out that they have people they pay to.
Yeah, it's a business.
Who are they are like their staff. So those children you see on the streets, this is from the grapevine. Take it from me. I'm sure there's a documentary on YouTube as well. I think you can find
they have people that they work for.
These people bring them from the villages from where, tell them, oh yeah, go out. You have a target. They are marketers. You have a target, you have to bring this amount. When they bring the amount, they get paid, and then they go back and do the same thing again. Lagos is loitered with these individuals.
And then let's also point to the fact that there are people that encourage and enable this, especially that Lekki-Ajah corridor.
Now, Lekki-Ajah is the biggest problem.
There's some guys, they call them Yahoo boys, they engage in
give them
nefarious
food.
activities.
They give them
food.
all of that.
They feel it's a way of giving back to society.
Please.
And because these people know that, they're always there, they'll get food.
Please,
Yes.
Commissioner
Honorable
Tokunbo Wahab, please point your torchlight towards Ajah. Abraham
Go
Adesoya,
further
Lekki.
down.
Please. You are doing it. This is long overdue. It's late, but it's better late than never. Point. Why this is very key is if you happen to drive around that axis as early as 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., you see these boys, they are gathered in groups. If you go into Lekki Phase 1, just before you get to the mosque, you see them there in groups. There are so many. They came when they were younger. They are now growing up. These guys are going to be a menace to society. And
So
if
taking
care is
time
not
back.
taken...
And that leads me to this point. I mean, we can't just blame them. A lot of them are in their situation because of the lottery of life and the family they were born into with little opportunities. And this is where the government comes in. And the government really can't do it alone. So we need to industrialize, we need to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. And the government, I mean, it's been done in El Salvador. They have like a camp. So you could make them do community service for a month, 2 months. They clean up, you pay them stipends.
I've always said that.
And you remove them from this, you know, they have access to health, education, vocational trainings. But you have, there are large expanses of land in Ekpe and all the spaces.
We have
and you have
acres.
mobile courts that can quickly try them and sentence them to community servicing. Because if you don't do that, it will just be a cat and mouse game. Because they will always return to the street.
The question is,
Yeah.
you see, Nigeria, we have smart people in power. I never want to believe that we don't have. So the question will now be, who is sitting down to draw this strategy and say, let's do this? I've said it here on this program, and I'll continue to say it. The area boys you see on the road that are causing problem, telling people to pay money before they change their tire, that's a conversation we're going to have, especially on this program. Those boys, if you have factories, take them there. You just mentioned El Salvador. There are other countries too that do that. You know, there's a lot to be said. But then again, that's all on Wake Up Conversations. We're going to read your messages on YouTube, so feel free to drop a comment or two in the course of the show. But let's bring to you our top stories for today on Breakfast Central. Welcome back. The recent accident involving boxing champion Anthony Joshua and his friends has reignited conversations about road safety and public accountability in Nigeria. Though Joshua escaped unharmed, the incident and accident apparently had drawn attention to what experts describe as a long-standing and systemic failure in transport safety management. Every year, thousands of Nigerians lose their lives on the roads, not just because of accidents, but because of avoidable system failures such as unused trucks left parked by the roadside, delayed emergency response, and of course, many other things, especially poor enforcement of safety standards.
Nigeria's highways, often described as lifelines of the economy, have increasingly become corridors of danger where unmaintained roads and untrained drivers and inadequate rescue services combine to turn minor accidents into fatal tragedies. At the heart of this issue lies a deeper question. How much do we really value human life? And for every high-profile crash that makes headlines, countless others go unreported. The victims forgotten in statistics that barely change year after year.
Well, to help us explore the issue and what must be done to make Nigeria's highways safer, we're joined by the former general manager of LASMA, Mr. Jide Oduoye joins us here live in the studio. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
A warm welcome to you and thanks for joining us.
Yes.
I mean, first thing we saw on social media after the sad and very pathetic accident that involved two-time world champion Anthony Joshua and his late friends who have since been buried now was fingers being pointed at government, road traffic officials and so on, blaming them for what had happened. On the other side, people said, no, you cannot blame them. It was as a result of reckless driving, which was deduced that led to that accident, of course, causing the death of 2 individuals. My question to you would be, in the midst of all of this, isn't it time that we pay more attention to our traffic road systems? And what can we do to forestall such from happening in the future?
Well, thank you for that brief analysis. And I've always advocated that the responsibility for safety on the highway rests solely on the shoulders of government and authorities, whether they like it or not. Because for you to come to government and say you want to rule over people, it means you're taking on the responsibility of protecting lives and property. And every life matters, right, in Nigeria. But unfortunately, from the results that we've seen reported and unreported accidents and incidences, you find out that it appears that the numbers keeps growing year after year, and maybe the government just couldn't be bothered. Sometimes you're very quick to even believe that maybe the number of persons associated to be Nigerians is just too much, that silently they just want to reduce the numbers by just getting us killed, because that's the way I see it. And so apart from the government and its authorities, the second level of players would be the road users themselves. And typically, Nigerian attitude towards life, and maybe there's too much of a dependence on spiritual and religious cover, that we believe in everything that we do, good, bad, or ugly, God will come and save us through it. And so we're kind of careless in the way we approach road usage, the way we're aggressive on the road, the way we're just like lackadaisical attitude towards the normal highway code and highway ethics. And we seem to live a life as if we have more than the one life that God has given to us. In going forward, as with all things, I mean, you point your fingers to government, like I mentioned earlier on, and then you say, oh, education. What's the education level in Nigeria? Less than 0. When we're talking about average, we're over 200 million people. You're talking about health. Where is it? And so if the people are not educated in order to use the road properly, how are you going to get them to understand the code that is there? Now, if your health system is not in place, how are you going to deal with the after effect of an incident or a road crash? And then if your officers have not been trained properly to do the right thing all of the time, because sometimes they put in quote that they are trained, they've gone for training. But you can go for training for 3 years and come back with nothing, all right? And when you put all that together, I don't believe there's a seriousness at the moment. Tomorrow is another day. Maybe with your program, kind of program, you highlight what's going on, and with high-profile personalities getting involved with those sort of things, there's an awakening. However, typical Nigerian setup, and I'm not trying to be negative towards us, because I don't think anyone loves Nigeria more than I do within myself, right? So when we point out the truth, it doesn't mean we want to condemn or condemn people in government. It's just that you guys need to wake up and smell the coffee. The reality is on ground. A lot of people are getting killed every single day. The numbers are not right. World record is showing that the accidents that happen in Nigeria is just way, way higher than any other country. And why is that? Most of us are educated that the ones that are sick should be on the road. But we tend to find ways to go around the corner and not want to do things the right way. And so the government needs to put a stamp down and say, you know what, enough is enough. Now, how many signs am I putting on the road? How many officers am I putting on the road to do the right thing, to educate?
And that brings me to this question, Mr. Oduoye. You've rightly put the blame on both parts, the government and the citizens. But I want us to focus more on the citizens because the average Nigerian is more than government officials, and they play a huge part in dealing with some of these issues. You were a former GM of LASMA. LASMA is in the forefront of State Traffic Management Authority, and other states that have set up similar outfits have referenced LASMA, and they've come to LASMA for some sort of training. So LASMA has set the bar high when it comes to traffic management authorities and systems in Nigeria. When it comes to Nigerians and dealing with this, because the Daily Mail in the United Kingdom sent a correspondent to Nigeria, the aftermath of the Anthony Joshua interview, and he was there on the highway showing that, look, the standard of this road is as good as what we have in the UK, but from the 10 minutes he spent, he's seen people take one way, he's seen overloaded vehicles, he's seen all sorts of madness go on in those times. So what's LASMA's approach to enforcing, and how do you even appeal to Nigerians? Because the law is not there for you to break it. The law is just there as a deterrent, so you do the right thing. And I don't think law enforcement is happy to go around catching people all the time. It's waste of resources. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be brutally honest with you. And the reason why is because there's an inherent feeling amongst us that we don't even want to be told what to do. We don't like being enforced. We don't like to do the right thing. We just want to do things under the quote of freedom and whatever. And that cannot work in a sane society. And so you see an agency like LASMA, and while I was there. And it's unfortunate that I had to do a lot of battle because I was coming from a background of where get things done and see results. Everything is measurable. It's not playing to the gallery. It's not trying to be politically affiliated, because that's not a job. Because the people that look up to you to see a difference in the society are not expecting you to be political. They're expecting you to do the right thing to save lives. Because for me, if you throw a stone into the market, you never know who it's going to hit. So whilst individually you can say, oh, a bad incident or result hasn't come to hit me, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So I'll give you an example of where the pressures are, even where LASMA is concerned, all right? So incidentally, I was talking to someone yesterday. So from the day I was born, I'm now over 60 years old, right? So from the day I was born, I noticed, or I realized in Nigeria, that the downfall buses were used as public transport, right? It's 2026 right now. The same downfall buses are still being used as public transport buses, all right? With no control. Anyone can just get into that sector and just set up a bus and just start driving, all right? And I can tell you, I guarantee you, at least in Lagos, nearly 75% of all motoring incidences and accident causation are caused by the yellow buses and the mini buses, the small korokbes, and the kekemawas. I can guarantee you 75% of them. The remaining 15% or 25% is shared between the Toyota Camry Uber drivers and then the other interstate drivers. The one-off SUVs, whatever, you find them battling themselves on Third Mainland Bridge and Bodilon in Ikoyi, whatever. But these are the... So now tell me, how is LASMA not capable, not empowered enough to address the yellow bus operators? And you know why? Because it smells of money. There are so many stakeholders involved in that setup that to let go would bring a major change. Either a political, political shake-up. Something is just not right, and that is what I say. But as long as...
But is that why enforcement is lax? Because, I mean, for private road users, you stop at a traffic light, and then before you know it, 3 downfall buses are in front of you, ready to jump.
Make that 8. Forget about 3. Make that 8. I did a survey at Cactus Junction about a week ago, and I was just, because there was an incident that happened, and there's a case of manslaughter going on there, right? So I was doing an assessment of what's going on. On my video, I counted 15 vehicles that jumped the red light on a 4-lane road. A big intersection like that, 15 vehicles jump, and it happens every single day. And it's not nighttime. So tell me what happens when it's 10 o'clock at night. And so there's a problem. There's a problem in the system. Now, last month, I'll come back to last month, right? So enforcement. You find out that to a certain degree, after 7 o'clock, most last month officers have gone out of the road.
Yeah.
There are two factors for that. Accommodation and transportation for them to get back home, all right? And then vulnerability in the dark, all right? Because once you're there, because you've done your enforcement during the day, these downfall drivers target you, all right? So if you're there in the dark and you're controlling traffic, they're gonna hit you and disappear. And so you feel vulnerable. So you find officers like thinking, you know what, I cannot, my life is worth more than 10 million that is likely to come for after your death, right? And so they disappear. So everyone kind of feels in Lagos that after 7 o'clock, it's free for all to do whatever you want to do, all right? So the government needs to look at this situation. That's why I put in there. Anything in Nigeria at the moment, government has to do enforcement for the average
How about
Nigerian.
the police traffic department? Because they do have.
Police traffic department?
Yes.
Please.
The ones they refer to as yellow fever.
You just want to wind me up right now, bringing the police into it. Because the police too have an agenda where anything to do with traffic and orderliness is nothing to do with them. Yes, nothing to do with them. A few days ago, I was on the Third Mainland Bridge. I found about 10 police patrol vehicles parked stationary on Third Mainland Bridge, rather than seeing one on the road, patrolling the road and making sure. Because in England, in America, right, because you know you can meet a police car, you can make a cop car on the road, you behave yourself because you don't know where you're going to meet them. So you can't just be stationary at the Adekunle interchange and expect people, once you get there, you go past, you know you're not going to find any police on the road anyway. And they tend to want to mind their business. You see, but the police have forgotten their powers, that they have a power to make sure that all kind of laws are obeyed. You don't have to be a last-man officer to tell a citizen to do the right thing. You see trucks overloaded, you see stuff on top, and they will drive past these police vehicles on Third Mainland Bridge, and nobody does anything. Yesterday on Third Mainland Bridge, there was still somebody hanging at the back of a downfall, at the back of it. Now, if that guy, guess what he was doing? He was holding on at the back of the moving vehicle with one hand. He was busy pressing phone with his right hand. So if the downfall driver hits an emergency and he hits his brakes and he drops, what do you think is going to happen from the vehicle behind him? But what would happen now? The people come, oh, you've killed someone, you've killed someone. Then the police will spring into action, oh, you've committed murder. Then suddenly they're alive. So you see that accident that happened? I'm telling you for nothing. Apart from the driver's bad behavior, it was the police escort that caused it. Because he was following the police escort. And everything that they're doing, they need to catch up. So when the police are busy being aggressive, overtaking and doing all sorts of things because they're the lord of the jungle, right? The driver is now like, I have to keep up. And that is the sort of thing, even though it was a bad act, because obviously they must have been doing over 140 kilometers an hour for that kind of impact, right? And the road is so wide, which means he was not able to maneuver quickly. It was a sudden thing, it wasn't concentrating. And when you're doing convoy, you tend to follow the lead rather than concentrate and take responsibility on your own thing. And I think that's what happened. So, yeah.
Wow. There's a lot of questions we need to cover very quickly. And I don't know, I hope we can really make out time to do this. But let's see. I want us to look at the economic impact first. First of all, let's talk about emergency response on major highways. Sometimes people say it takes longer hours. Why does it take so long? Emergency response lines, are they not working, the hotlines, and what can be done better so that response can
and also interagency coordination.
Well, I would say that is, you see, this emergency thing should not just be on the medical side alone, because when you look at the present infrastructure, all right, the infrastructure is not there for you to, nobody can predict exactly when incidents or accidents are going to happen. So it could be on a 20-mile distance from the nearest emergency, it could be 200 miles. And when you see the way the roads are used, like especially during festive period, the roads are clogged up. And we don't have that kind of respect where we leave the emergency lane for emergency vehicles. Any road space that is available is easily occupied by motorists. Right? If you go to Germany, on the Autobahn, right? If you're on the road and there's traffic, whatever, automatically the middle lane is left free. Automatically.
That's the law.
That is the law.
For ambulances.
For ambulance, for emergency, for police, for ambulance and everything. Because if you need someone to go and deal with the situation, that's what I don't understand about Nigerians. You can see, for you to be held in traffic, it means something has happened. Now, when you're blocking access to what has happened, how do you expect it to be resolved before it gets to you? I don't understand the way we think. And we will just block every road space. A 2-lane road, 3-lane road is turned into 5 and 7, right? And so that is so the numbers are working well, but we're back to the government, right?
Yeah.
Everything that you say is for the public. Every single day you must ensure that it is working perfectly. You must even go out of here to prove that it is working perfectly. Don't wait for people to say, okay, last week I called and everything. You must make sure. Second thing is you must have collabo with private hospitals. It's not a case of you must, and it is integrity and it is trust. Because if I'm a private operator hospital, and I know if I give you a bill because I've done something approving, I will get paid. Yeah. Not you're going to be dilly-dallying and whatever. Do you understand? Because I'm running a business and I'm trying to help society. So you must help me too in making sure things are working right. Because the government doesn't have the capacity right now to build hospitals so close to every time there's an accident on the highway, right? So there must be collaboration with private hospitals. There must be police involvement. So it's not a case of like, go and get a police. I mean, I'm already injured from an accident. You're telling me that you're going to get a police report before you can attend to me. Like, who does that?
I mean, it defeats common sense and basic decency.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about another thing that shocks me as a Nigerian, that we've almost let it be part of our society, apart from the fact that it appears that Koropes and Danfos have a different law. They have a different constitution that governs them. This has to do with alcohol, people drinking under the influence. I've never seen law enforcement conduct breathalyzer tests in Nigeria. I've seen it in Uganda, I've seen it in Kenya and several other African countries. But it seems, you know, it's okay to drink and drive. You have this motor park drivers saying, now we think they make my eye, they shine well when I did drive. And why are we not talking about that? Because if you're driving under the influence, if you operate machinery under the influence, you won't be able to concentrate, and it's been responsible for so many accidents. But we don't even have a public service announcements that talk about this.
It goes to exactly what I'm saying, and unfortunately, government people probably don't like me saying this. That's why I hardly get invited to forums anymore, because I would speak the truth as I understand it. Rather than FRSC officers, and I do have a lot of brothers and friends in the FRSC system right now, and they know my stance. Rather than them standing on the road and sort of like stopping cars that are obviously not violating any so-called traffic rules, and you're spending your time on the road, why are you not going to the garages? Because there are two things that happen from the garages. The drivers, like you said, they're under the influence, and then overloading. Overloading is destroying our highways, right? But you don't go to the source. You don't go to the port authorities before they leave the port gates to say this is overladen. All right, this is going to damage the road. You don't go to the garages where they're loading for Ibadan, Osogbo, Imo State, everywhere outside Lagos, right? You don't go there to say, no, this driver that is going to take these innocent 12 passengers, right? This driver is not fit. You conduct your test there. You don't need to do it on the road. Nobody needs to see that you're being effective, right? Do it from the garage, and soon they would know.
Absolutely.
Once they see you and they know you're there, people would adjust. But because we sit down, and that is when accusations come in, like, okay, maybe it's obvious you're collecting riba. Riba means like you're collecting something every week, every month from them. So everybody just keeps quiet. I mean,
hush money.
I don't know what kind of society. Okay, let's say it is bad today, but I'm thinking, just like you guys are saying, what happens from tomorrow? Are we supposed to go this way? How many of us are going to be killed before somebody wakes up? Every time you guys are not far from Otedola Bridge, keep on saying Otedola Bridge, Otedola Bridge, you think that there's a curse. There ain't no curse. It's not a curse.
What's happening there?
What's happening there is just bad behavior, over-speeding, and is going down the line, and then you find people doing all sorts of nonsense, turning and ejecting out of Otedola Estate. So instead of going in at 30 degrees to turn into the highway, they come in at 90 degrees, right? Without care or whatever. So they force trailers to slam on the brakes. All sorts of things. Those are the causations of what is going on. Or you come out of mobile petrol station. Instead of going into the first lane, you shoot out. You find Nigerian driver trying to overtake at the exit of a mobile petrol station into the highway. What is wrong with us?
And then there are no consequences for these actions. Sometimes it's like it's selective justice.
And then when there
you
are
have a few
consequences,
persons-
it's almost like extortionist.
Extortion, okay, pay
You are
us
not
and
even
then-
explaining what the person did. It's
Exactly.
you are interested in the financial penalties.
I mean,
that
if I'm looking
you
at this
get.
now, 20,000 to 40,000 deaths yearly from
that's a
road
lot.
crashes come from road crashes. 30,000, 20,000 to 40,000. I mean, take a look at those figures. According to the FRSC and the World Health Organization. Also, road injuries leading to the cause of death from ages 15 to 39. So it means that if you're watching this program, you have a family member who's within that age bracket, you could lose them
Yes.
to accidents. I just had a friend who survived an accident recently. Christiana Akpan, that's her name. She was on a bus, and there was this mad collision. She broke her arm. The person next to her died, and so on and so forth. I mean, we see these things happen regularly. My question is the state, let's focus on Lagos State now for a second, because Lagos State seems to be, what do they call it? Seems to be the mirror boy
Yeah.
for every other state. And yes, Lagos State prides itself to be a mega city, but yet we see these Korokpes, Danfo drivers, they don't even use the bus stops. I do recall that the former governor, Governor Ambode, had built bus stops. He had a strategic plan,
Yeah.
but they don't use the bus stops. That's one. Secondly, we just showed a video this morning. Should your tire have an issue on the road, the area boys come calling.
Yeah.
And then just right in front of them are the police and the last man. They turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
What can be done to solve?
Well, I mean, it's funny thing you mentioned about during Ambode's regime, and even with present government. I mean, you have agency like Lamata that I had worked for before I was appointed GM last month, and they've done a lot of work in terms of like building on the strategic transport master plan for Lagos. And so Lamata is on the forefront of changing the face of Lagos. But I dare say that we're still in 2026. As long as I keep on seeing the yellow buses operating freely, then I know something is
but
not
that's about to
working.
change, right?
Well, I'm not going to put, I mean, in theory, yes, in theory, right? But,
But you won't
in
take a bet
reality,
on it, yeah.
no, I would definitely not put my house on it, right? So you tell me how a government is seated looking. So somebody brings a van, a vehicle that is meant for goods carriage, all right? And they convert it into a passenger thing, which means the safety mechanisms for human beings and a vehicle
of it,
Metal, chairs, wood.
yeah.
so they allow that, number one, because they get registered. All those vehicles are registered in Lagos State. So somebody is collecting money and paper from them to say, okay, you're good to go. Then the second thing is that the government has got its eyes wide open. If the seat that is meant for 2 passengers or 3 passengers on a bus like a Mazda or LRT, right? And then you squash 4 passengers at the back. And the seating in between is so squashed up to accommodate extra seats that by the time you're seated in the bus, your knees are up here. So any kind of impact at 30 kilometers an hour is going to affect you. And then you now see the small windows. Like I said, it's a goods vehicle, not passenger bus. So you cannot squeeze out of those windows in an emergency. And so we are killing ourselves.
These are the
deliberately.
issues.
That's number. Then you now get to Korokpe. Korokpe, not Korokpe, the Kekemawa was meant for husband and wife and just 2 passengers instead of the motorcycle rider in India.
Yeah.
All right. So they now decide to build a carriageway to accommodate 2 passengers. That's all it is. 2 passengers and the rider. That's why it's got a fit. But what do we do in Lagos? You allow 3 passengers, and
the
then you
fourth
have
one.
for about 4th. You have 1 on the right and 1 on the left, and their knees are jutting.
And their knees, yeah.
and their knees are
he
jutting.
doesn't
I've seen
have
that.
Yeah.
Not
space
only,
to
not only,
maneuver.
bend
not
down
only
and-
that, they are now not even within their lane to say, let me be in traffic. They are now creating extra, going against traffic. So, and this happens every single day. But the police will see me in a BMW, in a Mercedes, in a Range Rover, and then I'm going to be the target. Like, seriously? we are just joking. You see, your program, you people, you have a lot of work to do. And I really mean, because your responsibility is to educate the people and to sound it into their ears. Like, even if the government does not care about you, it is your duty to care about yourself and your family.
A great place to leave it. Thank you so much, Mr. Oduyoye. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and we hope to have you back very soon.
Been a pleasure.
You'll definitely be a regular here.
Well, let's tell you what's coming up next here on Breakfast Central if you just tuned in. Coming up next on the program, gunmen attack National Park Service office in Oyo, kill 4. Very sad situation. 40 million Nigerians will be poorer by December 2026.
141 million.
Yeah, 141 million, I beg your pardon. And then the big one, Group 6 redeployment of Minister of State for Defense. We'll talk about that story in a moment.
And a troubling escalation of insecurity, violent attacks that once primarily affected parts of northern and north-central Nigeria, now moving deeper into the southwest region. The trend began with a deadly assault on worshippers in Eruku, Kwara State, where armed bandits stormed a service at the Christ Apostolic Church, killing at least 3 people and abducting dozens during a midweek gathering in November 2025. The kidnapped worshippers, numbering around 38, were later freed days after days in captivity. Just about 3 days ago, suspected terrorists ambushed travelers on the busy Isanlu-Isin-Omuara highway in Kwara, kidnapping at least 4 passengers in a brazen early morning attack that highlighted persistent danger on major transit roads.
The threat has now crossed further into Oyo State, where suspected bandits mounted a late-night assault on the National Park Service office in Oloka, Orire local government area on the night of January 6, 2026. Officials and eyewitnesses report that at least 5 park personnel were killed and others injured as attackers stormed the facility and fled into nearby forest areas. The progression of these attacks from northern Nigeria into the southwest shows a widening geographic spread of violent threats and raises serious questions about the capacity of existing regional security measures to check these incursions. Let's talk about this for a moment as our guest joins us. He's a security expert, and we can guarantee you that he's been following this story toe to toe, eye for eye. We do have Arato Kwale who joins us this morning. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Central Africa.
Good morning. We can't hide the facts to mention that there seems to be a major worry right now. Fear is indeed the order of the day, especially in the southwest. One would ordinarily think that the insecurity crisis we've been hearing all through the years is actually focused on one particular geographical area in the state or the country, which happens to be the north or the central. But over the years, especially the past 10 years, counting, it's been spreading and trickling down to different areas. If you look at the Nigerian map, what does this progression from Kwara to Oyo now tell us about the capabilities and the mobility of these armed groups, as it were?
You see, thank you for having me on this very program and this very hot topic today. Crucially, we've been seeing the issue of banditry, kidnap, criminal activities, along the northern part of the country. Southern part and the western part are not equally, out of the zone as well when it comes to, the escalation of conflicts and stuff. But however, this present government inherited what happened during the last administration, and the last administration as well inherited what happened in the past. But the question is this: have we really learned anything that can actually say these are the lessons learned and this is the best way to move things forward? Rather, we just want to start pushing buttons of blames and pushing blames and blames. But do not forget one thing that I keep telling whenever I'm on the air to speak about this kind of situation that we have in our dear country today. Over time, we have been hearing the word security budget votes for governors, to pass down to chairmen and to local government areas. But the question is, what have they been using all this funding for? And what is the essence of having the security budget vote if innocent people are being neutralized or being negatively, dismantled for no reason, for no pure justification? Those are the key things we need to start talking about. And do not let us forget the reference of Sunday Igboho in Oyo State during the last administration. Is it now something that is playing another key part that, oh, Sunday Igboho will be rejoicing at that? I mentioned it. I said it. I worked it. I tried to stop it, but now it's haunting them back. So those are the key things we should be talking about right now. The Oyo State is not only affected, Ondo State is equally affected. Yes, it's happening within the vulnerable communities, but it is going to trickle down to a situation whereby governors and government will start asking themselves, are we doing the right thing or the wrong thing in the country today?
Then I believe it's in these, it's in the light of this, of anticipating and looking at the patterns of these attacks that the southwestern governors and states came together to create the security outfit called Amotekun. But how effective are they against some of these violent extremist groups, and what sort of weapons and capabilities do they have? Are they strong enough to fill in the gaps where the police and other federal law enforcement agencies might be lacking?
Thank you so much for bringing the word. The regional governors came together, the Southwest governors, let me put it that way, came together to form Amotekun Regional Security Outfit, which I, Oluwafemi Aratokun, knew so much about. The build-up, the write-up, the proposal, and a lot of things that they should do. I am not at all a stranger to all this. In fact, I wrote the first proposal as in how things should work. But the question is this: do your investigation very well. Do they have the right equipment to actually protect? Were they given the right welfare? Were there anything like insurance for them at all? No motivation anywhere at all for all this human capacity to protect us. So how do you want them to protect us when they don't have the right set of tools, the right set of PPE, and the right set of motivation to go along with? It is going to be a difficult thing, and it's going to be a difficult one. In your state, how many Amotekun do you see around? In Osun State, how many Amotekun do you see around? Even in Ondo State that we're talking about, there's so many infighting going on around there between the Amotekun members as well. So Oyo State needs to do more. And if we see Oyo State as where Amotekun was actually formed from, and they are facing this, then it calls for a lot of questioning that what exactly are the governors doing, or what exactly are they doing wrong that they need to put right. To me, my own opinion and my own observation, for all I've seen, enough needs to be done to make sure that we contain all this, but sadly, it is not what we're seeing on ground today.
Mr. Ale, I would like you to hold on with us. Just stay for a while as we go for a quick break. When we come back, we want to take a look at some of the major worries and concerns, especially of Nigerians. The sudden silence, especially coming from some quarters of government, and why this could mean could be detrimental to fighting insecurity. Stay with us, we'll be right back. You're welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. We're taking a look at the recent attack in Oyo State. Just in case you have not heard, there was an attack. Gunmen attacked the National Park Service office, killing about 4 persons. And it's elicited a lot of conversation, insecurity on the rise. And the worry is it's starting to really trickle down towards the southwest, aside from the Middle Belt, north, and you could say north central. Our guest is a security expert, and he's been following this story very closely. Thank you so much for staying with us, Mr. Ale. Let's go back to one very key thing. I've mentioned here, and I'm sure that you are aware as a security expert, in other countries where there's an attack, we would get a quick presser, a press release, or a presser rather, live conversation with members of the press, especially from the security agencies. And they will talk to each and every single Nigerian through one medium, be it a TV station or TV stations, radio stations, print, at that point in time, not later, maybe a few hours, explaining what they've been able to ascertain, what they've gotten, breaking it down, answering questions in any way. elevating or taking away fear, let me use that word, from the rest of the citizens or people who live in that locality. But here, it seems to be quite different, and this is becoming the norm. Do you think that the security agencies and security experts owe Nigerians and the people in that locality a quick response or a responder, not maybe in action, but in telling them what they know about the incidences? And how will this in any way help to reduce the worry and the fears?
You see, there is no two ways when it comes to this kind of situation that we find ourselves. The first responder to all this kind of situation should be the federal government, the state government, and the local government before it now comes to the citizens in the country. However, when we do not have the right awareness in place or what to do, how to go about it, who to call, the buttons to push, it becomes a big problem. This is one of the key things we're actually having as what are the line and in the chains in command? Who do we first talk to? And even the people who want to talk to, do they have the right resources to come quickly and do the rescue management if need be, or what they need to do so that we can actually prevent issues from actually happening in the first place? We do not have all these mechanisms. On paper, yes, we do have it. But when it comes to reality, we do not have it. And this is exactly where we have a problem in Nigeria when it comes to what we do in terms of if we see a situation like this, how do we respond? The awareness needs to be done. That is where we have, that is why we have what we call the National Orientation Agency, which I believe they are working, but maybe their focus have shifted to somewhere else. These are the kind of things we need to bring back and win the awareness of people towards the government, and the government should do more, investing into awareness, awareness, awareness. Security is a true investment in Nigeria, and true investment in Nigeria is security. But if the media and the international world are listening to all this, now how do they want them to feel? How do we even feel that, yes, investment is coming back to us in Nigeria? It's going to be a chaotic one, and that's one thing we're witnessing today in Nigeria. And if all this is actually going on, how do you think our security agencies will work when they don't have the right tools to work for them?
Now, Mr. Arotoku, let's talk about this, the National Park Service Office attack. It's a very serious one. I mean, the loss of one life is a tragedy, let alone 4 lives. And we've seen this pattern of probing into southwestern states. They've hit north central, the border towns, Kwara, Kogi State. We've seen attacks there. And they're heading towards the coastal states of Nigeria. What does this tell us about these violent extremist groups? Has anyone claimed responsibility? Is it one group? Are these attacks opportunistic? What sort of message are they sending? And what can you say about the government's response so far? Are you satisfied with the response?
Well, to be in reality to what is going on ground, I think the government body language and response is a bit slow and draggy to my own understanding, because so many people have actually been arrested. What are the rates of prosecution and judiciary, sentencing of all these people or all these criminals that have been apprehended in the past? So these are key things we really need to talk about. That is one. Then let us come down to this national park. We call somewhere Forest National Park, a park where you have security officers with no protective tools. Have you ever seen anybody in Nigeria who are the forest guards today wearing what you call the protective armored vest with the current security situation they face every time? No, we do not. So the question is when was the last time all these guys have gone for training to have some kind of security training, which would definitely be a holster training program to help them in securing all these our national parks in Nigeria? We've not really seen anything. So if we start talking about all this, it's not as if we want to criticize the government, but we're just trying to nudge the government that, hey guys, these are the key things you should do. These are your responsibilities. If you're not putting your responsibilities there, then our national parks, our reserves will definitely be going down. And that is exactly what we're seeing today. In terms of strength, we have the strength. Capacity-wise, we have it. But manpower-wise, I'm not going to say we don't have it, but when it comes to the materials to make it happen, do we have it or not? Yes, we might say on paper we have it, but the reality is on ground right now, which we're seeing our security officers are being overpowered by some criminal elements because of our own greed, selfish interest from the government that is not making it happen very well.
What do you make out of the statement that at this point there should be a state of emergency on Nigeria's insecurity? Here on the program, we've highlighted that, not just from us as journalists, but of course, looking through the stories, this has led the topic in terms of calling for a state of emergency. Right before the President of the United States did put out that tweet, which kind of like scrambled the eggs around and people, started running helter-skelter to get things done. Do you think Nigeria is actually heading towards a code red? I mean, the code red, I understand, is he don't red, he don't be. So everybody, we need to make things work. Action, let's go. Or do you think it's still soft? So that's the reason why, everything is handled nicely. Where do you think we are headed to right now, in all honesty?
You see, I will use this word, which I think the whole world, the Nigerian government and everybody listening to this live program will start thinking about. We should have what you call the track, the trace, and the arrest method of all these, sponsors of all these criminal activities we have in Nigeria today, which I think is key. If we want to move forward, arrests should be made. We know them. I mean, some of them, are well known to the government, or they might even be part of the government bodies as well. Who knows? And these are the key things I think we should do. Calling a state of emergency, I don't think is the right word to use because the governors are equally, let me put it this way to you guys, the head of their states. So they have the full power to do and undo, but sadly, we've allowed politics to dominate rather than allowing governance to dominate. That is the problem we're having. If we share the idea of politics away, then governance will definitely be seen and will be acting the way it should be acted. But we've not already seen that happen. Rather, what we're seeing every day right now in the country is all about politics, and politics seems to have dominated the fact that we should take security serious. Because of that, a lot of criminal activity will surely happen. Calling state of emergency is not the right thing, but holding the government or the governors accountable, the chairman accountable, should be the right thing to do.
Now, finally, Mr. Aratokun, before we let you go, Nigeria witnessed something very unprecedented in our history on Christmas Day. U.S. President Donald Trump did attack ISIL targets in Sokoto State, and Nigeria framed it as a partnership. And others have said, it's a violation of our sovereignty that Nigerian Air Force and armed forces have the platforms to deal with this. Do you think that's going to be a one-off? And what sort of strategic partnerships should we be seeking with the United States, regardless of what motives or motivating factors might be driving President Donald Trump?
Let me bring you back again to another new reference or another old reference, which we should always think of very well. In the past, we've equally supported Liberia, we supported Sierra Leone in terms of, different kind of escalated wars then, which are, we have the ECOMOG, that a group of countries, came together to support and, destroy a lot of criminal activities. So if we are seeking for help to help us in what we're going through today, it is not a bad idea, but the way and manner we're going about it and the consequence of all this is what we should be looking and thinking about. That is one. Secondly, who is paying America for what they're actually doing for us? It's another thing we should be asking ourselves. What are the likelihood that whatever they do on ground, can we actually support the Nigerian government and support ourselves to make sure that we do the right thing by making sure that we destroy all the criminal elements we have and be transparent at least to a certain stage whereby life can be what life should be all about in Nigeria. That is my own take. America coming to support us or to support or destroy certain elements is not a big deal. But the problem is this. What are the terms and conditions of what they are doing for us in Nigeria today? That is what we should be thinking and looking at. Sokoto and other places that they might probably be targeting might not be the problem, but are they actually targeting the right places that should be targeted should be the key thing we should be equally thinking about today.
Wow, something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Ali. And we do really appreciate your time for speaking with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's quickly head to YouTube, where you've dropped your comments or two. We're going to start off from right when we, began, when we started the show. Good morning, NC crew. Lillian Oloa says, she drops a comment. Okay, she's talking about the INEC chairman there. Thank you so much for dropping that, Lillian Oloha. Of course, Moke Chukwemeka says, good morning, Team News Central. They cannot sustain the raid on street urchins and beggars. That was part of our wake-up conversation this morning. We did talk about Lagos State. They decided to ensure they go by street to street, go to different areas, the Lekekwe corridor, to ensure that they're able to, take away the street urchins and those who harass people on the roads. Honestly, Nigeria immigration needs to up this game. Do whatever it takes to stop and check and keep accurate data and information of the citizens so as to be able to identify illegal immigrants. This is by Adebi Aruna says. Adebi Aruna also says this can also curb the incessant attacks and kidnappings, as what you say. Well, I like this man. Prince Ajibade says, I guess you were referring to the former GM of LASMA who joined the
Mr. Jide Oduyoye.
Absolutely. Chukwemeka once again says that sitting thing in buses is terrible, trying to make more money and distorting the original idea of the buses. That's what he says, especially in our conversation before this insecurity, this one. And finally, the FRSC will see commercial vehicles that should not be on the road and turn a blind eye. It's me that's driving my small car that's a problem. Thank you so much, Mogwe Chukwemeka, and thanks to all who have dropped a comment or two. Please feel free to do so and engage with us on all socials. If you're on YouTube, feel free to drop a comment. To Facebook, do so, and the likes. Let's now move to our next conversation. This morning on Breakfast Central, despite CBN's 2026 economic projection rise by 4.3%, it looks like Nigerians are about to see a repeat of 2025 as accounting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers projects that 141 million Nigerians could be living in poverty by December 2026. That's 62% of Nigeria's population. Now, this means yet again, Nigerians could see GDP rising without their pockets feeling the rise. Growth may not translate into meaningful income gains for most citizens.
PwC's Nigeria Economic Outlook 2026 highlights that recent economic policy adjustments have yet to deliver tangible benefits for households. Weak real income growth and persistently high living cost means that millions of Nigerians may see their economic situation worsen, even as headline inflation is expected to moderate. The report notes that lower income households remain particularly vulnerable to shocks with limited capacity to absorb rising prices. Join us this morning for this very important discussion is economist and co-founder of Truva Intelligence, Basil Abia. A warm welcome to you, Basil. Happy New Year. And it's great to have you join us this morning on Breakfast Central.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Thank you, guys.
Yes. I mean, I'm sure the government handlers, after putting out the last quarter GDP figures, will not be happy to see this report by PricewaterhouseCoopers, but I mean, they say the truth is bitter. It's what it is. That 141 million Nigerians were going to fall into poverty in 2026 is a cause for concern. So what factors do you think will be responsible for driving this projected rise in poverty despite economic growth forecast? Isn't there a contradiction here?
So the contradiction has to be cognizant of the fundamentals, right? What are the core fundamentals that are responsible for the fact that there's a high chance we're going to have close to an additional 20 million added to the 133 million multidimensionally poor Nigerians, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. And a lot of things that a lot of Nigerians really don't understand is that even though inflation data seems to be reducing. In fact, to be more accurate, Nigeria is currently going through a deflationary period, which means that the speed of the increase of aggregate prices in the economy has reduced. Now, that does not mean that prices have gone down significantly. No, what that means basically is if we go back to the actual textbook definition of inflation, the subsequent recurring rise of prices across board in an economy is reducing at that rate, per the price level period that the inflation data started being recorded. Now, as a lot of Nigerians do not really understand, there was a rebasing of how we calculate inflation. It happened very early in January 2025. Basically, what happened was two things. The first thing was that the price level that we were using to calculate inflation changed from 2009 to 2023. So the last level where we were using the price baskets for the entirety of aggregate prices had to change. So that also meant that the weighting that we were apportioning to certain things like housing, like gas, like electricity bills, just a number of them, food, for instance. Let me even give you more specifics, or give the audience more specifics. As of 2009, the National Bureau of Statistics were calculating that an average consumption basket for an average Nigerian household was 50%, 50.9%, so basically 51% if you put it together. So 51% of the aggregate consumption for the average household in Nigeria as of 2009 went to food, right? And that was what we're using as our methodology for calculating the space of the increase of aggregate prices. Now, according to the MBS, when they did their rebasing, they decided to use December 2023 as the last timeline for calculating inflation. And it meant that they would have to review the consumption basket for the average household. And according to them, the consumption basket for the average household switched from that 51% to 40%. So that meant that even if food inflation was still rising, the weightage for calculating inflation reduced because you had reduced, the baseline with which you were using to calculate from 51% to 40%. Now, there were a number of reductions too. Outside of that, there were reductions for housing. There were also increases. For instance, healthcare costs increased from 3% to 6%. There were many other things but nothing can be as significant as that of the food inflation reduction, because the food basket for calculation reduced from 51% to 40%. Now, apologies for the technicalities, but I want to be able to make people understand why, even though on paper, the macroeconomic fundamentals look seemingly on the up, but we're still going to have, as many Nigerians as possible slide into slide into poverty. And the major reason for that is that while there is a deflation or a reduction in the increase of aggregate prices, what is actually happening is that, firstly, Nigerians on aggregate have not increased their earnings. So let me give you a typical example that I think everybody who is listening or watching this would understand and would be able to relate to. As of 2023 in July, or let's say May, let's use May for instance. May 1st, 2023, PMS price across board in Nigeria was between 190 naira to 200 naira per litre. As we are speaking right now, PMS price is between 750 naira to 850 naira. In fact, the projections that might increase to 950 on average for 2026. That projection is actually from the CBN macroeconomic report outlook. Now, this basically means that your basket of consumption or your basket of expenditure between May 2023 till now definitely has increased, because you look at the price transmission of PMS price to almost everything. Almost everything increases. Your barber increases the amount he's charging you for cutting your hair, right? Your transportation increases, whether you're driving yourself or you have a driver or you're using Uber or Bolt or InDrive, all of that, the price transmission is the swiftest in our macroeconomic system. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that when that increase happened between 190 naira per litre to 750 naira, how many Nigerians on average increased their earnings relative to this particular increase that is very swift and very brutal on the average Nigerian pocket? Very few. Yes, we know that a number of companies increased their salaries for staff. A number of federal government offices also did that. The federal government also increased the average minimum wage. State governments, a number of them increased, even though we know that a number have still stuck with those numbers. But when you are concurrently looking at those numbers, there has not been a relative increase on average for Nigerians. So at the end of the day, the reason why that slide into poverty is going to happen is because on aggregate, earnings have not increased. Nigerians are not richer than they were 3 years ago.
Sorry to butt in, Basil. When Mr. President says the economy has turned the corner, what corner has it turned? And doesn't that translate to a better life for ordinary Nigerians? Or is talking about other fundamentals?
So, again, I'm not trying to, the wording is definitely wrong when he says the economy has turned the corner. I think what he should be saying is that the economy has stabilized, based on the core fundamentals. And this is relative to what the state of the economy was before. Relative to what the state of the economy was before, inflation was almost war-like, if not wartime, in terms of numbers, right? The rate of increases of almost everything was ridiculous, for the average consumer. 1. 2, foreign exchange was very hard to get by. It was so distorted that you had the black market rate, at a significantly higher rate than the mainstream market, or the official market. That obviously was one of the contributing factors to how and why our inflation was super high. Then you also had the monetization, of our fiscal space, largely by CBN printing money, to supplement a lot of the distortions that were happening in terms of our public expenditure. Outside of all of that, that contributed to why inflation was at an untenable rate. So what he should be saying, or what he should have said, on a technical basis, was that there is now some stabilization, but definitely the economy has not turned the corner, because what you're seeing again is that consumption has been hurt, and one of the easiest ways to look at that is to go and look at FMCGs in terms of what their sales are. Mm-hmm. Yes, their earnings have increased, and their earnings have increased again, like I mentioned, because of a number of factors. They have increased their prices to match what the economy is currently going through. And that's why the earnings look quite good. Outside of that as well, there was the FX windfall gains of 2025 that almost every company enjoyed. That's not going to be the factor in 2026, because all of those windfall gains have now moved past, a number of things. So the simplest explanation to this is that the economy hasn't really turned the corner. What we are seeing is stabilization of the core fundamentals. And what are the core fundamentals macroeconomically? Your inflation rate, your interest rates, GDP numbers, as well as the earnings, especially the foreign exchange earnings. Foreign exchange earnings have stabilized. 1, that obviously is the reason why the economy is stabilizing. Inflation rate, the rate of inflation has reduced. So we are now going through a deflationary period. It is easier to get access to foreign exchange now compared to 2023. So all of this obviously is stabilization. So that yields to the stabilization fact. But to turn a corner means a lot of things. To turn a corner means that we're at a 7 to 8% GDP growth rate. All right. To turn a corner means that we're at a single-digit inflation rate, but we are not a single-digit inflation rate up till now. To turn a corner means consumption rebounds significantly, which means people are spending money at ridiculous rates because they have higher earnings in their pockets.
Okay, Mr. Basil, just hold on. We'll go on a break. When we come back, I want to know how sustainable the economy is now that we know that if 62% of the population remains in poverty. How sustainable is that, the economy, and not forgetting to what Nigerians should actually know while they watch us this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're looking at the current state of Nigeria's economy with the recently published PwC 2026 Economic Outlook. And our guest has been breaking it down for us, but just in case it sounds too cumbersome or very, very tough for you to grab, we'll try and see if our next set of questions will be able to make it a bit lighter. And I'm sure our guest is ready to do so for you, our viewers, as well. Now we know that the economy, 62% of the population remains in poverty line, even though sub-quarters of the presidency do not agree with that, but the PwC report makes it clear. The question to you this morning is, for every single person watching from home, what does that mean for them in the coming months? And what does it mean for Nigeria's economy in the coming months as well?
So I'd answer it in two simple ways. First, for the average Nigerian, this basically means that if their earnings do not increase relative to the increase of prices over the last 2-3 years, they're going to slide into poverty numbers. And what are the acceptable poverty numbers right now? Is if you're spending less than $2 per day, or let's even go more traditional, if you're spending less than $1 per day. And what is the cost of $1 right now, generally in the market, both in the mainstream market and in the parallel market? That is about 1,470 naira or 1,480 naira. So on average, 1,500 naira a day. So it means that a lot of households who are not spending more than 1,500 naira a day, who do not even afford it, who cannot afford it, are basically going to be, tagged as poor. That basically is what it is, and a number of reasons are responsible for that. The cost of energy prices, the cost of transportation, the cost of healthcare, the cost of food, regardless of the deflationary experience that we're now seeing with food prices, it's still not going to be sufficient enough to sustain these households. So these households are going to slide into more multidimensional poverty. And again, like I mentioned earlier, it's just because we're not, as a people, we're not earning enough on aggregate, and that's just not good enough for the economy. Now, what does this mean for the economy in general? Consumption, as you know, consumption is a huge backbone for the economy. Consumption relative to inflation reduction basically reduces, and that's not good for our mainstream economy. The real sector, that is those in manufacturing, those in services, are going to struggle to be able to maintain their current balance sheet numbers or their balance sheet expectations, because aggregate consumption on average is going to reduce. So the more people on aggregate slide into poverty, the less we see consumption numbers increasing. So that reduction in consumption affects every other part of the economy. Banks are not going to service as many companies as possible. They're not going to service as many deals that they would love to service. Cash flows that they're going to manage on behalf of companies would reduce in that sense. So right now, what are the solutions? What are the immediate things that government can do to ameliorate the situation and to trigger higher consumption and ensure that we halt a lot of the slide into poverty? Many things are important, but I think for me, the core fundamental for government that is constitutionally, imperative for them is first and foremost ensure that there is stability and security. There has to be stability and security for the markets to respond. There has to be security so that consumption can increase. Just look at northern Nigeria, for instance, especially north central and northeast Nigeria, and even with the recent attacks in Oyo State in southwest Nigeria, a lot of people are leaving the hinterlands and going to urban areas. That is increasing the high spate of urban poverty. So urban poverty is actually on the rise compared to other forms of poverty in the country, because a lot of people from rural areas are going to the semi-urban and urban areas because it's no longer tenable for them to live in these rural areas. Now, there's a lot of dynamic that we need to look at. How do we even produce in Nigeria? How do we produce food, for instance, in Nigeria? 95% of food production in Nigeria is carried out by rural smallholder farmers. So farmers that dwell in rural areas are the backbone of our food production. And if they are now leaving the rural areas to stay in semi-urban and urban areas where land rent systems for farming is even harder than normal, then it basically means that food production or food cultivation on aggregate is going to reduce. That contributes to a major reason why we're going to probably have that 160 or 140 million Nigerians fall into poverty, because a huge part of these people are food producers who are already low earning. Where am I getting my data from? The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization has that data for the number of people that contribute to agricultural production in Nigeria. IFAD, for instance, as well, also have the data saying that out of this, 90% of these rural smallholder farmers are actually classed poor. So even before they started to migrate from rural areas to semi-urban areas, these farmers were already low-earning Nigerians. And now they're now being threatened by their livelihoods because they have to leave. And they have to leave because you have a situation where there are bandit groups. There are over 2,000 bandit groups right now in Nigeria. That is a terrible number to look at. And these are bandit groups with membership numbers as low as 24 and membership numbers as high as 4,000. So depending on who their leader is, maybe Abba Gude, or Serikin Daji, many of their names, I've really forgotten a number of their names. These are bandit leaders that govern over 2,000 fighters.
It's really...
So all of that dynamic brings into the picture in the sense that government can curtail this slide into poverty if they ensure security. That's the first thing.
Very important, and not a very pretty picture we're looking at ahead, but hopefully things turn around for the better. But let's talk about what's currently happening around the world and the geopolitical implications for Nigeria. Over 70% of Nigeria's foreign exchange earnings come from the sale of crude oil, and oil plays an important part in our economy and nationhood. As we speak, the United States of America went into Venezuela, kidnapped the president, his wife, and they said, according to Donald Trump, is going to control the oil. Not just control Venezuela's oil, control what they spend the money on, that they have to just buy American goods and use American services and all of that. Now, bringing it back home, what implications would it have for Nigeria that has benchmarked the 2026 budget on $64.85 a barrel? Is that a realistic benchmark? Will crude oil prices go up or down as a result of the events in Venezuela?
Yeah, so again, this is a very technical question that needs a bit of care when answering, but let me stick with the fundamentals first before other probables. Right now, as it speaks, Venezuela, the United States of America controlling the oil industry in Venezuela, does next to nothing in terms of price dynamics for global oil prices. And the reason for that is that Venezuela's supply to the global oil market is negligible, right? Because they have the largest oil reserves doesn't necessarily mean that they have a significant impact in the oil price market for a number of reasons. One, in spite of their 303 billion barrels oil reserves, current oil production in Venezuela is just north of 1 million barrels per day, right? And not a lot of that goes to the oil markets. In fact, a significant number of that actually goes to the illegal oil market, mostly obviously to Russia and China. Outside of that, the numbers that get in as formal exports are between 500,000 barrels per day to 750,000 barrels per day. In fact, as of December 2025, due to the punitive measures of the United States, they were only able to export 500,000 barrels per day. Now, if you wipe out anything or everything that Venezuela already gives to the oil market, you can still, cover that with, I would say, extras from a number of countries. The United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia has over 3 million barrels per day of crude oil in spare. So basically, they are spare supply. So if you wipe out anything that Venezuela currently gives to the global energy market, you can complete that, even increase that just from Saudi Arabia and UAE's spare. Now, moving to what the effect might be on Nigeria. Before even going there, I just also want to give some specifics as to what the current state of infrastructure is in the oil industry in Venezuela. And the major reason why you can't really convert those numbers into an impact in the price levels. At its peak in the 1970s, Venezuela were producing about 2.5 to 3 million barrels of crude oil to the global energy market. That was significant, that was very influential, and that obviously ensured a lot of things for Venezuela economically. Unfortunately, there has been a dereliction in their infrastructure over the last 30 to 40 years for a number of reasons that I'm not going to. And the specifics of their infrastructure is this. Firstly, over 95% of the crude oil in reserves that Venezuela has is what we call heavy crude. Now, to extract that heavy crude, you need a lot of electricity because the system there is significantly different from how you extract crude oil, say, for Nigeria or other parts, right? You need the export infrastructure, for instance, of pipelines that can convey this heavy crude. To convey the heavy crude, you need to reduce the viscosity of the heavy crude. You need steam for that. Steam needs to be generated using electricity. Venezuela has a serious electricity issue. In fact, they currently have an infrastructure deficit for electricity of about 15 to 20,000 megawatts of electricity. So they need to be able to generate that level, and that will come at a huge cost, right? The same thing for the export terminal infrastructure. They only have about 1.5 million barrels capacity. And even at that, peak capacity is at 900,000 barrels. Their main export terminal is the export terminal at the Port Puerto Jose, right? And the Port Puerto Jose needs a total revamp, not the temporary turnaround maintenance that we currently do in Nigeria for our refineries. You need much more than that. Now, outside of that, if I transition from the infrastructure dereliction, which will take at least 4 or 5 years of consistent investment to revamp, you're not going to be able to get the effective number of supply from Venezuela to affect. So it's not really going to do anything to the global market. What might happen, and then now this comes to answering the second question about what this impact might have on Nigeria.
Yeah.
What might happen is that if the United States, based on this direct control that Donald Trump wants to exert on the oil industry in Venezuela, if they actually succeed in incentivizing their oil super majors like ExxonMobil, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, and the rest, if they actually succeed, because again, it's also another incentives game that is really tough. How do you attract the CEOs to come into that place where there's a lot of infrastructure deficit, there's a lot of security situation that has to be sorted out? You need to make sure that the incentives are very nice. And if the incentives are nice, if the White House succeeds in getting the right incentives, that basically means that potential foreign direct investment that we need for our oil industry in Nigeria from Texas, from all of those HQs in Texas, from the oil super majors, conveys a way to Venezuela. So that is probably the only impact of the decision of a direct control. And that is dependent on if the incentives are right from White House. If the incentives are right from White House, the potential deep oil offshore FDI that we need from super majors in the next 5-10 years reduce. That obviously affects our core fundamentals in terms of foreign exchange inflow. Outside of that, there's not going to be a lot of, in fact, impact will be negligible or non-existent whatsoever in terms of America's direct control on Venezuela.
Thank you so much, Basil Abia, for breaking it down for us. So it was a pleasure speaking with you, Basil Abia, co-founder of True Threat Intelligence. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
You're watching Breakfast Central. We'll go on a quick break, and when we return, it will be time for breakfast headlines. Do stay with us.
On Breakfast Central, let's take a look at what the top stories are on Breakfast Headlines. We begin the news with security developments. Let's take you to Katsina State, where a 3-month-old peace agreement with local bandits has been violently broken. According to latest reports, heavily armed attackers invaded 3 communities in Malumfashi local government area on Monday, operating for several hours and causing widespread destruction. Security sources report that the coordinated assault started in Ongwa Alhaji Barau before the attackers moved on to Gidon Da Maigizo and later Gidon Hazo. The incident has renewed fears among residents and raised fresh concerns over the fragile security situation in the area. Let's stay on security matters. Residents of Kasumwa Daji in Borgu local government area of Niger State are calling for the immediate establishment of a military barracks in the locality to stem the tide of banditry in their locality. This urgent plea follows a deadly attack on the community on January 3rd, which has officially claimed over 30 lives and left the local market in ruins. The attack has triggered a mass exodus, with hundreds of residents fleeing their homes due to credible threats of a return by the assailant. The situation is further compounded by the proximity of the community to Papiri, the site of the recent mass school abduction, raising fresh fears among parents ahead of the government's planned school resumption on January 12th. Let's tell you that tragedy struck in Oyo State on Tuesday night as suspected bandits killed 5 National Park Service personnel in Oloka. Armed men stormed the facility around 9 p.m., engaging officers in a deadly shootout before retreating. Oyo State Police spokesperson Ayolade Olayinka confirmed the assault, noting that bodies are still being recovered from the forest. The State Commissioner of Police, Femi Aruna, has deployed tactical teams and explosive units to secure the volatile area. The attack near the vast forest reserve has sparked fresh panic among residents. The United States has announced a fresh round of travel restrictions targeting Nigerian travelers. The new measures include a requirement for some visa applicants to post a bond of up to $15,000 before entering the country. U.S. officials say the policy is part of a broader tightening of entry rules and is aimed at ensuring visitors comply with visa conditions, including returning home when their stay expires. The move is expected to increase the cost and difficulty of travel for Nigerians visiting the United States for tourism, business, or family purposes, and signals heightened scrutiny of travelers from Africa's most populous nation. The African Democratic Congress has inaugurated a 20-man committee on membership mobilization, revalidation, and registration as part of its ongoing efforts to reposition the party for growth and strengthen internal cohesion. The national chairman of the party, David Mark, while inaugurating the committee, says that the move has become necessary following the need to revalidate the party's existing members, register new ones, strengthen its grassroots presence, and harmonize membership records nationwide ahead of future political engagements. The committee, co-chaired by Kashim Imam and Aisha Yusufu, is tasked with conducting a comprehensive membership revalidation exercise to establish an up-to-date membership register for the ADC and is expected to submit an interim report to the National Working Committee of the party within the next 30 days.
Terms of reference include but not limited to A. Oversee the registration of new members nationwide and ensure their inclusiveness, transparency, and adherence to party guidelines and democratic principles. Develop and implement a nationwide membership mobilization strategy. Develop and implement a nationwide membership mobilization strategy with particular emphasis on the grassroots at the polling units, at the ward level, at local government and state levels.
That this is the first of the committees that...
Let's go outside of Nigeria now, where Burkina Faso's ruling military junta says it has forged a plot to assassinate the country's leader, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. In a late-night broadcast, the government said the alleged plot was masterminded by Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Damiba, the former military ruler who was overthrown by Traoré in September 2022. Security Minister Mohamedou Sana said intelligence services intercepted what he described as a sophisticated operation in its final stages. Ahead let's also tell you, by the way, that according to the authorities, the plot involved plans to kill me, the head of state, and carry out coordinated attacks on other key institutions, including civilian figures it was mentioned in the news. Well, let's wrap things up quickly and also tell you that Guinea's junta leader Malami will be sworn in as president on January 17, 2026, following his victory in the December 28 presidential elections. The presidency announced the inauguration date in a social media post, saying the ceremony will hold at the General Lassana Conte Stadium in Conakry. Doumbouya, who came to power in the 2021 military takeover, had earlier pledged not to contest elections but later entered the race and secured a decisive win. Guinea's Supreme Court has validated the result, clearing the way for his transition from military leadership to an elected presidency. And that's all the news we have for you for this hour. Don't forget to join us again at 12. We'll bring to you a fuller news bulletin with the 12 report, where you join Blessings Mosugu. My name is Joe Hansen. Stay with us. Coming up next will be the front pages of the newspapers.
Hello, welcome back to Breakfast Central. It's now time for us to look at newspaper front pages, and joining us to analyze newspaper front pages today is no other than the CCO of Sustainable Stories Africa, Mr. Wade Aime. You're welcome to the program and Happy New Year. First time you're coming to Breakfast Central in the brand new year of 2026, and a lot has happened.
Yeah.
In the few days.
Good morning, Benga. Good morning, Nigeria and the rest of the continent. It's great to be here. Happy New Year to everyone. Wishing you a great 2026.
Yeah, great to have you. So many things happening across the world and with implications to Nigeria. So we start off with this Nigerian newspaper. On the front page of this Nigerian newspaper, oil prices fall again after Trump says Venezuela to send oil to the United States. And what sounds like a bullying and threat, as so many people have analyzed it. We'll come back to that in a second. But the main headline of this Nigerian newspaper says, court orders interim forfeiture of 57 properties. I repeat, 57, linked to Malami. The rider says grants 500 million bill to former Justice Minister, his wife and the son. As we said earlier this morning, that's a family affair. And judge warns lawyers against trying to influence him. What are the implications for the Nigerian judiciary? Why should a judge make this statement? A judge should not be approachable in the first place. We'll get to that. FCT poll, no substituting order to act on INEC. No subsisting court order to act on, INEC tells Labour Party. And sad one in the southwestern part of Nigeria. Bandits kill park rangers, deepen Oyo security fears. Obasanjo, how I freed Nigerian labor from grip of CIA, KGB. Ex-president reveals secret pact with Sumonu to sustain labor credibility. So, Mr. Wade Aime, you have it. Where do you want to pick and choose from? Where should we start from? The big one, the Malami, the story that's screaming at us in the face. Court orders interim forfeiture of 57 properties linked to Malami, grants 500 million naira bill. The first question that comes to my mind is, what makes it very easy? Aren't there early warning mechanisms or systems in place that will flag corruption and issues of graft? Because what we see later is headlines, sensational headlines. Oh, X person wanted for X billion amount of money that was misappropriated and all of that. Is it that when you're in government, it's just the coffers are so open that all you need to do is just go there and help yourself?
Well, it seems so in Nigeria these days, when you're in government, that the coffers are completely open for you to just open it up and, what's it called, take as you go. But the truth about this is that there is an interim order to forfeit for 57 properties, which is the right thing for the judge to do, to grant that interim forfeiture while the court listens to both sides of the story. But my problem here is always this. This is the big story of 2026. January 2026, we are covered by AFCC saying that Malami embezzled 213.2 billion. Am I right about that? And then he has 57 properties, XYZ, ABC. First and foremost, before he came into government, he was already a lawyer, and a popular lawyer for that matter, across Nigeria. I think even before he came into government, he was a SAN, and if he had become a SAN, we know how much SANs,
take
charge
for their briefs,
for their just the briefs, not even to talk about going to court. And so these are all the things that you must put in context. But I can nearly say that what we need to do in Nigeria is, rather than sensational headlines or perceived or alleged corruption, let the case go into court, get a judgment, let it go through the court process, get all your judgments, whether it's from the High Court to the Appeal Court to the Supreme Court, and then we know for sure that these things are real, because we've seen so many cases dismissed, even at the High Court, before it even goes to appeal by the court, on lack of evidence. So all these newspaper headlines, trial, and that's what Nigerians are going to be talking about, which is, for me, is a distraction.
Sensational.
It's a distraction. Rather than focus on how will 2026 go, the president has laid out key things of what he plans to do. The CBN had said that inflation should drop to about 12%, so we'll wait for them in the first MPC for the year in February to see if they will reduce MPR, which is rates for borrowing between banks. Because last year, when inflation dropped to about 16-15%, the last meeting, everybody was expecting, all analysts, all economists said, oh, they would reduce it, even if it's by 100 basis points. But we didn't see that. And I was chatting with one of my friends, and one of the things I asked is it that the MBS data is not aligning with the street data? Because when you have an MPC that is comprised of 12 people, and 7 of them also live in the realities of Nigeria, of course they would hear what is going on, and whether these rates that have dropped astronomically is halved in 1 year.
Another story on the front page of this Nigeria is bandits kill park rangers deepen oil security fears. So on one hand, we say we're on top of the security situation, and the other hand, it's moving, it's spreading towards southwestern states. So was this an opportunistic attack, and is it a cause for alarm?
Well, two things come to mind to me when we talk about this. First is the bomb attack, or the bombing on December 25th in Sokoto. Did they really
by the United States government? Yeah.
Yes. A collaboration effort. Did they really have a major impact on disrupting terrorist activities? Because what we're now hearing is that a number of them fled, or have fled where they were and are moving in different directions. And that's typical for criminals. So where are they going to? Because there was an attack, I think in Sokoto, one in Taraba. So of course, those who if the place becomes so hot, you look for cooler grounds. And where will you find cooler grounds? You'll find cooler grounds as it goes on. So in my own opinion, I think the government should be a full-pronged security initiative. As you are bombing, you are ensuring that security
that they
operators
can flee to other places.
Even if they are fleeing, you are aware of who they are, because if that intelligence is available, then of course you can provide it to other states, and then you can start to take precautionary actions towards ensuring that those who are fleeing can be arrested, and if there is an encounter, if they lose their lives, unfortunately, they won't go for trial and be able to tell us more about whether they are financiers or their colleagues, and so on and so forth. So these are the things I see. So that's the possibility, fleeing terrorists looking for safe havens. And unfortunately, this is not the first one. One happened in Niger a few days ago. I don't know whether it's terrorists from the Middle West or those who are fleeing. Now this is in Oyo. But I think it was earlier in the week, or sometime earlier in the week, there were speculations that they some of the Western states had identified that some of those fleeing terrorists were coming in this direction, and I guess that's what a fallout of encounters with the park rangers.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at another newspaper very quickly. I'd like us to look at our next paper, The Punch. Let's see what The Punch is packed with. Tax law, 5 trillion naira VAT windfall for states as new formula begins. New tax law tilts VAT revenue towards states, local governments, and federal governments. Share drops to 922 billion naira. The tax law.
So the governors should be happy, and does more money mean better governance?
Well, in the states,
for the states, and also
well, it should.
Would local government autonomy finally kick off?
Well, it should, because there is a Supreme Court judgment on it. However, we've seen, and this is the irony. Well, 30 governors are now with the APC. The ones who are not with the APC, we see 36 state governors who are all bound by principle of local government autonomy. Does not mean that local government funding should go directly to local government. And you know the irony of this, and I say this, people tend to forget, the president is now pushing for this. He's the one who pushed for funding local government funding autonomy to cease 25 years ago. Now you're pushing for it. What's behind it? The same Attorney General was the one who argued that case. Is he seeing things differently today? Maybe. But the truth of it is
what should be the appropriate?
The appropriate is local government should have autonomy. What the Constitution says is the local government and the state government must have a joint account that is managed by the local government. And the reason being that they want to be sure. Because
keep tabs.
No, not just keep tabs. The budget of any state, when you hear a state, oh, our budget is 1 trillion, is inclusive of the activities of the local government. So you just don't want to throw the money directly to the local, and this is my opinion, don't want to throw the money directly to the local government. And then you find out that they are diverting money to other things.
No, we have anti-graft agencies. If they divert, they will pay.
We have people monitoring. Let's take Uche. Uche is calling us from Abia State. Good morning, Uche.
Everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yeah. The paper you people read just now, governors will be happy regards to new tax law. Nigerians will be making our leaders happy. When will our leaders make us happy as a citizen? That's the question we'll be asking them. These governors are living like emperors. You remove a subsidy, Nigerians are suffering. Where is the money of subsidy? Now they are happy because Nigerians are going to pay more. Making them happy. You people should ask them, when are they going to make us happy? The essence of being in government is to do what? To make your people happy. When will they make us happy in return? God bless you people.
Much, a very important question. Subsidy removal, there was windfall for the governors. Now this VAT, the new tax laws, 5 trillion naira windfall, more monies for the governors. When will they make the people happy?
500 billion extra that is coming to them.
Wow.
So it's not like this windfall. When you put that headline as 5 trillion windfall,
to be shared.
It's like saying that 5 trillion is new money. No, they already had about 4.5 trillion before now, so they are having an additional 500 billion to make it. Oh yes, that's what it is, because the federal government share of VAT has reduced. Now.
But it means more money at the end.
Oh yes, and I agree. So and I hear Uche, but the other part of it is we as citizens of those states, and we're always, jumping at the center. Mr. President didn't do this, Mr. President did that, But the states themselves, that the governors themselves who govern where you stay, are you with me? How are you holding them accountable?
They seem to be getting a free pass, yeah.
Telling you.
How are you holding them accountable? Everybody has been shouting about local government funding autonomy, but nobody seems to continue to push. We as Nigerians are not speaking to that fact. Why? But like I said, autonomy doesn't mean that you can't have a joint fund, which is to help you as the state monitor that the things that have been provided for in the budgets are being carried out, and I agree to that. However, we as citizens of the state, we are more important as citizens, and when I know citizens, as residents of the state and citizens of this country, we are more interested in talking about states where we don't reside. More on the issue of, oh, my state, like Benga will always say, I'm from Edo State by origin. Well, I don't know what concerns me.
Let's take Michael. Let's take this call. Michael from Abuja. Michael, good morning.
Good morning. I just want to say that. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
I just want to say that the government, whether we like it or not, they have failed us. Yes, I just heard your guest talking about the citizens at the state level holding their governors accountable. How can they hold them accountable when the singular power they have of voting these people out of power have been taken away from them? Elections are no more. Transparent. We all know how elections are. That's the only way citizens can hold these governments accountable. Now, the president, instead of allowing the fuel subsidy and taking the crime in it away, swept off the subsidy and did the environment, if you ask me, move the money to these governors that we already know. Not just the governors, even the president. The president takes a large chunk of the money, and the governors say that now they are not doing anything with it. We don't feel the effect. People don't feel the impact of the. I don't know what this government is doing for the citizens. Every government has a contract for the welfare of their citizens. What is this government doing? What subsidy? What are they doing for their? What are they doing? What are they doing? That's one thing I want to add. So there's no way. We'll just pray that something happens that will change the order right now in the country. Thank you.
Much, I mean, if you go by the laws of physics, I mean, nothing is going to happen if there's no push.
There's no equal and opposite reaction?
Yes. Okay. And I mean, some of those governors, he raised a very poignant point that beyond payment of salaries, because some of them even think it's an achievement to pay workers' salaries. Oh, yeah, and it is, because we remember Osun State under Aregbesola, how they even came up with a formula. You take a certain percentage.
Can I interject you? It's the responsibility of New Central to pay you a salary. Am I correct?
Yes.
So how can it be an achievement if what they are supposed to do, they do it, barring the fact that if they don't pay you salaries, it means that they are not doing their work.
It's an indictment on them.
Exactly,
yeah.
And that's what I was saying. And I do hear what he said. But let's remember, when they say, oh, the president could have taken the windfall from fuel subsidy, there is a revenue allocation formula.
Yeah.
And the subsidy that was taken away from fuel comes into the revenue pot. And you're not going to tell me that because it came from fuel, it's not like the excess crude account, which is managed more by the federal government.
But why are these states, some of the states, not viable, economically viable? They have to go hand in.
Because the states have not been able to create the systems to make businesses want to come into the states. And I'll give an example. Someone, maybe let me use the middle belt and the north, where you have a lot of vegetable farming and all. When I say vegetable, tomatoes and all.
Yes,
tomatoes
crops,
are
potatoes.
Yeah. Now, if I want to set up a tomato processing plant, someone will tell me that the cost of land, for example, in a Kaduna state or in a Benue state or in a Taraba state, is 500 million naira. If I pay for certificate of occupancy for maybe 15, 20 years because they reduced all those things that used to be 50, 99 years. Now most states are doing 20, 25. And then I build that factory. I pay 500 million for the land. I build the factory with another 2 billion. That's 2.5 billion. I will employ workers. I would manage the logistics. I would buy my machines. I will do all that. And then it comes back to the market. What maybe should have cost, let's say, 200 naira. He's now at 1,000 naira. Who are you to blame? And then the states will say, oh, we are not, they can't generate revenue. How do you generate revenue when there are no businesses to help you generate revenue?
You're right. Let's take this call from Wisdom from River State. Oh dear, we lost Wisdom there.
Sorry
but still on the front page of the Punch newspaper, a very interesting piece of news here. On the bottom left corner, Togo, Niger, Benin owe Nigeria 25 billion naira for electricity. And we are complaining that we don't have enough electricity. And then Togo, Benin and Niger owing us. I expect to see ladders on Lagos Badagry Expressway. Trucks of ladders.
Or trucks of ladders.
Towards Togo, trucks of ladders to cut their lights. Well, because even us, they threaten us with disconnection in Nigeria. And, I mean, is this a case of
consumers?
Yeah, consumers. So, is it a case of Father Christmas here?
No, I don't think
you're giving what you don't even have.
No, I don't
enough of. And then they have the audacity to owe you.
Well, the audacity to owe you is
and then you are looking for money too.
Yes, and then you are looking for. And then is the 2 trillion naira subsidy? Are they also subsidizing other countries? Does this fall on there?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know about subsidy. They don't have a right to owe you once you deliver on the service level agreements, which I think Nigeria has continually done. Now the question is, how has the payment been structured? Now, sometimes when you hear this debt, it might be that payment is structured that you pay every 90 days, and the debts that are being owed now, currently, is that 90 days debt.
But now 3 countries collectively, if it was one country, that means they probably have a plan.
Togo.
they have a...
You know why I like Nigeria? Everybody has a plan. A plan to make you...
To frustrate Nigeria.
To not only frustrate you, but to steal your money.
3 countries collabo to owe us money. 25 billion is a lot of money.
And I agree. And we should make arrangements to make sure that we collect them.
Let's move to our next story, still on the Punch newspaper.
I like that kind of arrangement. And they should just remind them of what happened when they planned the coup in Benin Republic.
Yeah, exactly.
They should play that tape for them.
Okay. Yesterday, Dati Mohammed said he was going for president. He was going for the ticket of presidency under the Labour Party. While he was doing that, a few hours ago, Abure was disgruntled that INEC said they don't recognize his faction. So what do you make of this? As political parties jostle to get their party ready and in top shape.
And the fact that Dati thinks he can go it all alone now. He used to be Peter Obi's running mate.
I really don't understand. What does the Constitution say?
Anybody is free.
Exactly. Is he not a Nigerian? Does he not have a right?
Let me look at it of disloyalty there.
I don't understand disloyalty.
Let me look at it.
The other man, Peter Obi, who ran under the Labour Party, has decided to pitch his tent somewhere else. And he has decided to be loyal to his party. So, which is loyalty? Am I supposed to follow my...
His popularity rose because of his association with Peter Obi and the obedience movement.
That's what you say. You don't know.
Okay.
How do you know that? So let him, first and foremost, let him even run a campaign to win the primaries in the Labour Party. And if he does that, then he will go and run a national presidential campaign. And then we'll see what his popularity or how much his popularity is, whether his popularity is based on him or his popularity was based on his presidential running mate in the 2023 election. But like I say and I continually say, every Nigerian, citizen of Nigeria has a right to vie and contest for any electoral post based on the laws, which is the Constitution of Nigeria. Now, somewhere else, someone had asked, oh, should we continue zoning? In my own opinion, I think zoning is wrong, because what it does with zoning is you now start to try and pick who, where, which zone. So, and I give a good example. Everybody says Southwest. In Southwest, there are 6 states or 5 states. So when you zone it to Southwest, which states? Because that's the next thing. Because now the president has come from Lagos, Southwest. Okay, so he goes to the north. Buhari was from
Northwest. Katsina.
Yes, Northwest. So if he's going back to the north now, which part of the north should he go to? Is it north central or northeast?
Anywhere north.
Well,
that's the agreement.
That's what they will agree on. Let's go to the Guardian, our last paper.
Before we go to the Guardian, quick one. I mean, this is very important because of its implications and the diplomatic relations we have. Yes, U.S. slams $15,000 visa bond on Nigerians. And this is the same, okay, but let's take Julius from Lagos. We hardly get calls from Lagos.
Yeah, I mean, Lagos. Good morning.
And we're in Lagos. Hello, good morning, Julius.
Yeah, good morning.
Let's be sure, which Julius, are you sure it's not Julius Abure?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear.
Ask again.
Thank you very much. It's good for us to hear things like this, but I just want to talk about 2 things. On the security issue, I want us to know that our security agencies, they are trying, but they need to do more. They need to be proactive. With all these things that is coming, this thing has been coming from the north, they should know that it is coming down to the west. So what are we doing? Let's stop playing politics with the lives of the people. I think that's what I see in the security thing, because we have the capacity to do this thing, and I don't know what is happening. Our soldiers, our police, our everything, the people. If you have to arm people, arm people. For how long are we going to look at this? People are killed on a daily basis in the north, in the east, in the west, and all we do, we come out, we say this and that. Then on the issue of the electricity, it is very, very sad. The government keeps telling us that they subsidize electricity, trillions of naira. Yet, Benin, 3 countries that are our neighbors, they are owing. So what is subsidy? Is subsidy bad? Is subsidy that all over the world, things are subsidized to make lives easier. Our government should follow suit. Subsidy is not, there's nothing bad in subsidy. If subsidy is abused, they can check the abuse. Thank you very much.
Come on, Julius. And they should also provide the electricity, provide the service in the first place.
And I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Now, back to that U.S. story. U.S. slams $15,000 visa bond on Nigerians and 60% of African countries. This is the same United States that is building the largest consulate general in the world in Eco Atlantic City on a 12.2-acre land project
because
at the cost of $537 million.
Because of that, everyone wanted to recoup their money.
Hold on. I'm coming somewhere. $537 million. This is the same United States that is concerned about the lives of Nigerian Christians. So it doesn't even want to give Nigerian Christians the opportunity to visit the United States of America. Meanwhile, President Trump fast-tracked. There's a special program for Afrikaners, white South Africans, that he claimed have been victims of a genocide in South Africa. How do you make sense of all of this? Is this not sending a signal that, look, first came the ban, then this visa bond, that, look, I don't want you people to visit my country. You're not welcome, because that's the interpretation.
Okay, and I clearly understand your frustrations.
But it's not my frustrations. I have no business in going to the United States.
Exactly.
The United States is not heaven. For Christ's sake.
And I did say it was.
Yes.
So for those who have business in the United States, it just means that the cost of doing business is going to go up by another $15,000. That's one part. For those who don't have business there, are you with me? Live in Nigeria and let's make it a better place. So that if we really need to go to the United States, then we know that it's because of business, and that business is going to translate into making money. That's the second part. Now, the third part is not only Africa that he has done it to.
A majority proportion of it is Africans.
Yes,
and
but he
countries that have black and brown majority populations.
But he's also done it to Canada.
No, Canada is not on this list.
Well, because he had done it long before now. He did it last year. It was all over the news when he did it. Anyway, but the fact remains that the United States has its prerogative, and the President of the United States determines or decides, along with his executive team, what they want to do, for as long as it doesn't require consent by
Congress.
And that is exactly what he's doing. But like we know, Donald Trump is the president who is trying to ensure that, like he says, more revenue for America.
And by the way, the U.S. also withdrew itself from about 52 international treaties and organizations.
Yeah, because of, he's trying to save money.
They're not part of
he's trying to save
America
money.
First policy. That's more isolationist, by the way.
Well, let's go to The Guardian quickly.
Please, let's go to The
19
Guardian.
months after governors explore gaps in constitution, resist local government autonomy.
Why?
They don't want it. They want to have control of the money. All right. Malami court grants interim forfeiture of 57 properties worth 213.2 billion. Wow.
When you call these figures,
one person. New tax laws undermine tax system, democracy. NLC wants federal government. Kaduna farmers seek federal government's help over 10 points. Okay, that's a different one. Police bust child trafficking syndicates in Anambra.
That's great work by the police.
Girls. Which one would you like to take first?
We spoke about the LG autonomy already.
Yes, we have.
And also, let me just talk about the new tax laws. NLC. Now, the biggest controversy when these tax laws, and I'd like to give kudos to Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, he went around trying to educate everyone, at least whether it's the NLC or it's the... Yeah, he did.
And he did media rounds.
Yes, and he did a lot of media rounds, continually trying to explain. Now,
but why has he stopped now?
Why
has he stopped?
When the law has been passed, doesn't mean that he has stopped. He has to, and that's not true that he has stopped. He's continually talking about it on different platforms, even before the controversy came. Now, everybody is fixated on the tax laws now because of the controversy of what the National Assembly put in the bill and what was gazetted. And I even saw a prominent Nigerian who wrote to the chairman of the, what's it called, Nigerian Revenue, NRS, that there are two versions of the gazetted law on their website. Not just the NRS, but also the Fiscal and Tax Committee, which for me is wrong. And it's completely wrong because what you're telling Nigerians, it is confusion. And that is where the point is. But in terms of the tax law rates and all, and that's an administrative part of it. And that's where people are contesting. And I agree that you need to contest it so it's clear and we know what the administration is going to be like. In terms of the taxes themselves, the rates, the way it's going to work and all, I think, this is my opinion and this is based on my own knowledge, that it is fair. It is fair. I know people would throw me under the bus for saying this, but this is true. The same way they threw me under the bus for speaking so much about removing subsidy. And almost 10 years after that, when they removed it, everybody's there. But for me, the tax laws are fair. The administration inside the Gazette and what they say is inside the bill, which everybody says, well, a number of people, not just me, and I've also seen it, are different. That should be corrected. Because because it's one law, and once there's an error there, then it makes it not applicable because the law is not what was ascended to. And that's where the issue is. But in terms of the rates and all,
trust deficit.
Well, I don't think it's just trust deficit. It's an issue of this is what we all saw when the National Assembly sent the bill to become an act. The beauty of this tax act is that you have all of Nigeria's tax issues or tax issues under one document, unlike before.
It's harmonized. It used to be disjointed.
Exactly. Yeah. Now you have a harmonized bill. And the fact that what is inside the Gazette and what we saw inside the bill have disparities, then that, this is my opinion, and the legal people will fight it out in court. I don't think it is still valid, because what is used for administration is what is gazetted, and that is the Gazette that has been published and everybody has access to, that people should follow. But if you have two separate documents with different wordings for different sections, then
I agree. Well,
it should not be.
Well, the point is tomorrow we'll have a special on that, so we'll take a look at it, the gazetted law, the non-gazetted law, what was sent, what wasn't sent to the president, and so on and so forth. That's what we're going to do. But let's wrap things up very quickly as we're out of time. This time, let's look at this one. Police bust child trafficking syndicate in Anambra, rescue 33 girls. That is another big story on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. And then this one that says ADC inaugurates mobilization registration revalidation committee in 2020 for 2027, and we are in 2026. A lot of stories to look into, but guess what? We will handle all of these stories. Well, not all, some of them, as we discuss them. That will be tomorrow. All you need to do is just make sure you catch up with us again and make a date so that we can discuss further. Let me quickly touch on YouTube to find out if there's any comment I may have left out quickly before we wrap things up here on Breakfast Central. By the way, thank you so much, Abuwade, for
Thank you for having me, and Happy New Year once again, Nigeria.
Oh, that's true. This is the first time we're seeing this year. Okay, I'm trying to look through. Okay, yes, here you go. Top of the morning, great minds. What about the discrepancies in the tax law? Chukemeka has also highlighted. The problem with subsidies in Nigeria is that over-bloating figures. They can be sincere with figures. Subsidy is not a bad thing, and that's what he says. On that note,
I would also like to use this medium to appeal to our brothers in Togo, Republic of Benin, and Niger to please
pay our money, please.
Yeah,
because they're listening to us.
Please pay.
We need regular supply of electricity.
Donne-moi l'argent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give us our argent.
Merci beaucoup. Merci. All right. Thank you so much. My name is Joe Hansen. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Benga Bro. Thank you so much.
Au revoir.